In this video, we're going to show you how to install the passenger side CV axle on your Volvo XC60 located behind your front wheel. With the vehicle raised and supported, I want to go ahead and remove this splash shield here. There's going to be a total of 8 T30 Torx bit screws holding the cover in place. Now our cover is missing some and there are bolts replacing some of the others. So if you have all the original hardware, go loosen and remove all of these. They just run around the perimeter. Get to remove that cover and set it aside. Using a 19mm socket, you want to get loosen and remove the lug studs. With the lug studs removed, go ahead and remove the wheel. With the wheel removed, we're going to use a 13mm socket, loosen and remove the axle nut. With the axle bolt removed, we want to go ahead and make sure that the CV axle is free from the wheel hub splines itself. So we're going to take a little bit of rust penetrant and spray that in there lightly. Then we're going to use a brass punch here. I want to go ahead and tap this. Now we were able to free that up a little bit. We're going to spray this again. And sometimes you can reach around the backside and grab that CV axle and move that a little bit in and out. And ours is free moving now. Move that CV axle in and out. Now right here is your passenger side lower control arm, and if you follow that inboard here, you're going to locate one of these mounts, and then we have the CV axle right here. Now this is the inboard portion, and this is the carrier bearing right here. Now there's a cap on the outboard side here. It's held in place by two 10mm bolts. It's one on the top here, and one right behind this bracket we're going to try and get to with our gear wrench. Now I'm using a swivel head ratchet. You can use a regular ratchet. We did spray these down with some rust penetrant prior to tackling this job. There's one bolt there. We're going to use our swivel head gear wrench here. Not a lot of room in here to get into this. Now I have one hand, I'm going up behind on the other side, and you should be able to spin that out. All right, so that does come up to a point where it ends up hitting this mount right here. So even though you get that loose and ready to come out, we still need to go ahead and move this mount. Now we're going to use our jack to support our engine right here on the edge of the oil pan. We have a block of wood there. We're not going to lift the engine right now, we're just going to support it. Now with the engine supported here, I want to go ahead and undo this bolt. This is a 15mm bolt head. On the other side, there's an 18mm nut. Try and break this free. I'm going to go ahead and loosen these bolts here using 15mm socket. There's that bolt. Now we have all the room we need. Go ahead and pop that off. Let's go ahead and pop that out. All right, we can see that it's moving. So it's not seized in there, so that's good. Now at this point here, I'm going to slowly lower my jack. I'm going to pull that out for now. Now if you follow the control arm up here, you're going to find 3 bolts. You have one right here for the front portion of the control arm. Then we have 2 back here for the back portion of the control arm. Using an 18mm socket, let's loosen and remove these. Now removing this bolt here, there's going to be a nut on the top. It's a 21mm. You're going to come up on the front side between the back of the steering rack and the back of the control arm bushing here. Get to remove the nut. Go ahead and work that bolt out. Now the next thing we want to do is we're going to go ahead and take our whole control arm with the steering suspension components and just kind of pry it out a little bit here. Just enough where we can go ahead and separate our axle boot, or our CV axle. I'm going to take my brass punch and I'm going to come around the front and see if we can tap that axle in. Now we're able to get a lot further up, but we have to work on this and pull this out a little bit further so we can free this up. We can also go ahead and grab our wheel and rotate this out like so. With that free, we can pull this out towards the front. Now right here we have our carrier bearing. We already removed the cap from it. We want to take that axle. We need to pull that out of our transmission. So pull that straight out and we're going to work this out. You might lose a little bit of differential fluid or transmission fluid from the transmission. Now right here we have a seal right where the axle goes into. So I'm going to go ahead and take a rag and wipe on the inside of this here. Before installing the new axle, you want to make sure that the seal is in good condition. Look for any tears. A good indication that the seal is bad is that this will all be wet down underneath where the fluid will be leaking out. But ours is nice and dry and the seal feels good. So now we're going to go ahead and take the new axle. We're going to feed it in from the front side. You want to be careful with this not to damage that seal on installation. With this going in, I want to make sure that our carrier bearing is now going to line up. And we have about a ½ inch left to go here. Just pull that in. Our carrier bearing is now seated up against the mount itself. Take your bearing carrier cap, and I'm going to take a bristle brush and just kind of clean this out. Make sure there's no rust or anything inside here. Give it a quick spray with some spray solvent once you're done cleaning it, and then we're going to go ahead and set it in place. Now that we sprayed this out, we're ready to install. Pop that up in place. Now notice there that the cap would not, or the bolts wouldn't start with the cap on one way. Flipped it right over and they went right in. I'm going to torque down these carrier bearing bolts to 17 foot-pounds. Okay, those are both torqued. And go ahead and grab your mount. Get that into place. We ran our bolts through the wire wheel machine and put a little dab of anti-seize compound on there. Gonna run those up and in. Now we're repositioning our jack over here to our front diff. I'm going to go ahead and gently raise this up. I'm going to use my pry bar and go between the cradle here and the mount. And this is going to be different for you. You can raise or lower the differential. You can use a pry bar to shift this around and go ahead and get your bolt started in there. Now we went ahead and ran our bolt through the wire wheel machine and put some anti-seize compound on there. And go ahead and get that bolt started. We can go ahead and lower our jack. Snug down your bolts. Now let's go ahead and torque these down to 81 foot-pounds. Go ahead and grab that axle and we're going to twist that in. Now we put a little bit of anti-seize compound on those splines there. We need to pull our control arm back up and in. And go ahead and get those splines to line up into that wheel bearing. There it is. I just grabbed the hub on the front side and rotated that until that axle lined up. You can see it sliding right into place. Now we're going to use a large Phillips head screwdriver. You can use a punch or whatever you have to line that up. We really want to just get our bolts up and in. I'm going to go ahead and take one of those nuts, feed that up on top here, and get that started. All right, so we got the nut installed on here. Now what you want to do is pay attention to when installing these two bolts here. These go up to a upper clamp, a U-clamp, that holds the sway bar and bushing in place. Now if you're putting the bolt up and it doesn't want to go, you want to just reach up on the outside here, grab the sway bar itself, and you can slide it forward and backward to go ahead and line it up with the bolt itself. I'll take the other nut. Now that we have the two rear bolts in, the next thing we want to do is go ahead and get the front one in, and the front bushing has a metal sleeve in it. And sometimes when you're going to line this up here because of the angle of it, the metal sleeve is up at an angle, yet where the bolt hole needs to go is right here, and it goes straight up and down. We went ahead and hooked up a ratchet strap, and we're going to hook it onto the control arm and into a port on the frame or the unibody here. And we just want to apply some pressure here. Now we're going to go ahead and put our jack underneath our control arm and raise this up. This is also going to help keep the control arm from pulling back out when we jack up the suspension. It's going to apply some pressure. And then we're going to go ahead and try and line this up to go ahead and pop that bolt in. What we're doing is we're compressing our suspension up, and it should be lining this up a little bit better. There we go. Use a screwdriver. Go ahead and line that up. Sometimes you have to persuade this control arm to line up. I'm going to use a pry bar between the frame and the forward portion of the control arm and just kind of wiggle it. And once it gets started, you should be able to run that up. Now that we have that front bolt anchored and tight, let's come on back here. We're going to put our wrenches on the top and tighten down these bolts while holding those nuts. Let's go ahead and torque the front bolt down to 103 foot-pounds plus 45 degrees. There it is. So 45 degrees is half of a quarter turn. On the back of the control arm here, these two bolts are 129 foot-pounds. And just straight 129, no additional tightening from there. I'm going to go ahead and release our ratchet strap here. Lower our jack. Go ahead and install your cover here. Ideally, what you want to do is get all 8 of your screws started, and then we'll come on back and snug them down. Go ahead and gently snug these down. Now, anytime you remove an axle bolt on this particular model vehicle, you do want to go ahead and replace it because these are a torque to yield bolt. They should not be reused. Install that bolt. We did put a little bit of grease on that bolt. We're going to thread that in and we're going to snug that down gently. Now our torque specs call for 25 foot-pounds plus 90 degrees. Go ahead and grab your screwdriver and put it inside one of the cooling fins here. Lock that in place. There's our 25. Now let's go ahead and do 90 degrees. Our axle bolt is now torqued. Remove your screwdriver. Before installing your wheel, I'd like to go ahead and grab a lug stud, set it up inside the socket like so. Set that aside. Now ideally, I'd like to go ahead and line up one of these studs here at 12 o'clock. I'm going to grab my wheel, line up one of those studs at 12 o'clock. Support that on my leg. And grab that stud in my socket and get that top center started. Go ahead and thread that in a few threads. Once you have that in a few threads, go ahead and get the other ones started. And once we have all of these started, we can come back and zip them down with our gun. When snugging these down, I like to do it in a crisscross pattern or a star pattern. And you're just going to bottom those out, snug, but don't tighten them. Let's go ahead and torque down our lug nuts to 103 foot-pounds. When doing this here, it's best if we do it in a crisscross or star pattern. At that point there, you're all set.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.